Well, hello everybody. I'm Charles Kobes, Australasia's passion provocateur, and welcome to this week's interview show with the wonderful Sam Anthony. And I welcome you whether you're watching on Rumble or on YouTube or listening to or watching on one of the many podcasting platforms. This is the place where you discover that greatness can only be achieved through passion. And Sam Anthony is going to tell us an amazing story about his life. He is truly a passionate man, lives in downtown Florida. So, Sam Anthony, welcome, and tell us about you, because I didn't bother going through. You and I have had a conversation, but, you know, like me, you probably love talking about yourself, and I'm an expert at talking about myself, and no one is a better expert at talking about themselves than you.
Right. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your show, Charles. Great to be here. My name's Sam Anthony. I grew up in Chicago before Chicago turned into what it is now.
Okay? Yeah, wow. Chicago.
The funny part is my whole family was Democrats, right? Because that was the thing to be. And basically, the Democratic Party is really the Republican Party of today. The whole Democratic Party just moved into communism is what they've done. So my father was he was an iron worker in the city of Chicago, and it's all union based. They're all vote Democrats. So I got out of school and I started working at a place called Lehman Brothers in downtown Chicago
I know Lehman Brothers, absolutely.
A merchant bank. And so I told my mother and father, I'm voting Republican, and they're like, "Who is this guy?" Right? Matter of fact, I was having this conversation a few weeks ago with my mother when she's like, "We couldn't believe you did it." They're like, "How did we have this kid?" But then when all the stuff really started to change, then both of them registered as Republicans because the party left them. The party, just like it left everybody else. The only people it stands for are people that aren't part of this country or the absolute nut jobs who want to destroy the country. So the Democratic Party now in the United States is really just all about power, and they represent people who are not the citizens of this country. So anyway, I ended up moving to Florida long before it was cool to move to Florida. Everybody used to tell me, "Oh, why do you move to Florida for? There's tons of bugs there," right? This was the greatest move I ever did. Okay, the greatest move, Charles. I mean, Florida. When I first came here,
you mean to say you're not missing the Chicago winters?
Oh my God, that's why I came. I said, I'm just going to go for the winter, and I'm going to come back. I never went back. It's been 38 years. And in that 38 years, I went to visit my family maybe 3 times. Because you want to know why? Because they come here. Yes. They don't want to be there either. Let's get together. I'll come. No, we'll be by you. That's what they say. We're coming by you. I said, okay. So yeah, nobody wants to be there. And, now you're dealing with all the political stuff. I'm just thanking God I'm not there. I mean, to me, this is all one big criminal organization. But that being said, I started, Your News a long time ago. It was an idea. We're
focusing on essentially because you and I could talk for 3 hours, which we're not going to do. We're not going to do a Joe Rogan today.
Okay.
But Sam, you have set up a platform because your view is that the legacy media is collapsing. Mainstream media, same thing. Legacy media, mainstream media is collapsing under our very eyes. And so you've set up yournews.com.
Yes. And by the way, when I set up this platform, I did not believe the media was lying. And I did not figure that out until 2016 when Trump won the election. And then it was just so in your face lies. I mean, they were just making stuff up and running with it. So, so we have a platform and it's called yournews.com. We are a daily, like any news website. You have them there in Australia. We have them here in the United States. So I'm like the Chicago Tribune or the local newspaper in every city in America with USA Today wrapped around it. So we serve news to a city, a county, a market, state, regional, or national. Going back to what you said, the legacy media is not going to survive. It's not a secret. Even the legacy media knows they're not going to survive. And the reason is it's the same reason you don't send a telegraph. It's because somebody created a phone. There's always technology that replaces something else. We don't get in horse and buggies anymore because somebody created an automobile. And by the way, remember Star Trek, the movie where you could beam people up? Well, if you could figure out how to do that, you'd put the airlines out of business, right? Because I'd rather beam to Australia and be there in 2 seconds than fly over and take a whole day to get there. So it's just the way everything is moving. And Charles, this is not a secret. Everybody knows everything's moving to creator-based platforms. And the reason,
everybody, and I love you talking. I just want to point out creator-based platforms. That's the concept. And you gave me another great line, which was people-powered press, PPP. My first book was called Passionate People Produce, and you've created people-powered press. Keep going back to the creators.
Yeah. So to give an example, YouTube has roughly 61 million. They call them channels. Like Rumble has channels. You have a channel on Rumble. YouTube has 61 million of them. Rumble has 250,000 of them. Rumble exists because YouTube kicked a lot of people off, and Rumble filled that void. But YouTube's the 10,000 pound gorilla. But they had 3 billion people on their site last month. And the reason is because they have 60 million people telling people to go watch their show that is hosted on that platform. Okay, that's how they get all their traffic. Then you have websites like TikTok and Instagram, which each have over 100 million creators. And so they get massive amounts of traffic. And as everybody knows, the advertising dollars follow the people, and the people are all on platforms. So remember this, Charles, there's still a demand for news. It's just how people consume it has changed, right? That's all it is. So you have what I would consider myself the older generation that would watch cable news. And then you have the generation like my kid who doesn't even have a damn TV in his house. Okay. And gets everything on tablets or off of his phone. And that's just the natural order of things. So what our platform is a hyperlocal news platform, and it is truly a citizen-powered press. What we do for the news business is no different than what YouTube did to the television industry. They changed the way you view it. So now YouTube has become bigger than everything. I mean, remember, there's 8 billion people on the planet, and almost half of them were on YouTube.
8.3 billion.
Yeah, and 3 billion people. I'm sure even the Aborigines are on YouTube, right? I mean, they probably are. So it's just this massive audience, and it's all based on the creators that are driving it. So on YouTube, you don't have to go to broadcast journalism school to set up a channel on YouTube, right? I mean, percentage-wise.
I'm on YouTube. I didn't go to broadcasting school. Okay.
Yeah, and so neither did anybody else. But the marketplace decides. It's the viewing that decides, and the money gets distributed based on where the eyeballs are. So the advertisers could buy advertising, and they could target a specific topic and even a specific geography. So if you're doing a cooking show, somebody who sells pots and pans, you might be one of 100,000 people that does cooking shows on YouTube. So if your show had 100,000 views and somebody else had 1,000, well, who do you think is going to get more money? It's you, because the marketplace, you built a bigger audience. So what we've done is we've created a citizen-powered press where anybody can become a news reporter, even if they never went to journalism school. And the next person that's covering local news in your community doesn't necessarily have to be somebody from mainstream media. It could be your neighbor, somebody you know, somebody that says, Charles, I'm going to a city council meeting, or I went there yesterday. I know you couldn't be there. I covered it. Read my article on your news. And you already know this person and you trust them. This is where it's all headed, to creator-based platforms. My niche is local news. Did you know in the United States, just on LinkedIn, there's 500,000 people that call themselves freelance journalists, and freelance means, I'm looking for work, right? I need it.
Freelance. I'm working for free.
Freelance, yeah. There's a couple 100,000 kids that can't get jobs, student journalists. So, and then, how many people, like, you've heard of Nick Shirley, right?
Yep.
And I mean, I know we're in a different country, so I had to ask. So Nick breaks this story. I mean, this is a story that should have been broken by mainstream media. I mean, you're talking about something massive here. But it's a kid that's 23 years old, never worked for a radio station, TV station, or any newspaper, walked up with his phone and started taping and broke us the Leering Center. Remember, I mean, all the money that's been
That's right.
being stolen from
The
all
Leering Centre in the childcare facility in Minneapolis, wasn't it?
in Minneapolis, and they're literally stealing billions of dollars, and nobody can figure this out but some kid, some 23-year-old kid. So the point is, that's where it's all going. And
Come back to this. So come back to this question. That's a great line. Citizen powered press, and so what your platform enables people to do is to search. I don't want to do a demonstration because I want people to go to yournews.com. My show goes all around the world. If you can't access yournews.com, then you get a VPN, a virtual private network, everybody. They're very inexpensive. The one that I bought to enable me to access yournews.com is ExpressVPN, very inexpensive, like 68 Australian dollars for 28 months. And the point is that it was the Spectator magazine that was promoting ExpressVPN. So Spectator magazine, Sam, as you probably know, was founded in about 1843, and the Australian edition and the global edition I subscribe to. So I trust its recommendation on a VPN. But that VPN enables me to get access to 110 countries. So the point is, Nick Shirley, the example is excellent. Wherever you are living, your platform now enables, certainly in America and eventually around the world, your platform enables somebody to go into their own suburb via a postcode search to see what's happening. Is that correct?
that is correct. Yes, and they can not only consume but report.
So that's right. So every one of you who are watching this show can become reporters you can be citizen reporters on yournews.com if you're in America. And then if you're in Australia, you can report on national matters and Australian matters on the channel, but you can't search postcodes yet. And
No.
the point being, why did you create this, Sam? I mean, you're a smart guy. The media is a tough business. You made plenty of money in merchant banking and investment banking. What was your driver to create this?
It was me and a couple of people believe that due to the internet, it would ultimately replace the newspaper industry. So we just set out to build a platform. Now, this is going back before, I even thought the media was lying right before. I didn't realize how important it was. And so we set out to build that platform, and we ended up making a lot of mistakes. I lost a couple partners. I had to pick up another one. Then we created what we thought was the model, which was more of an affiliate network of all independent radio stations that had news departments across the United States. Then those people started to go out of business. And that's when I realized this needs to be a monetization model, a people-powered press. But you would think I was sitting in my living room watching news and got pissed off and started doing. That wasn't it. It was once I realized what was happening with mainstream media, I said to my partner, what we're doing is really important because this is going to become the next mainstream media. And for those of you who want to understand that a little further, everything's moving to creator-based platforms. I have a creator-based platforms. I actually have 6,057 news reporters, 6,000 across the United States and then even the globe, like in other countries. And it's all going to creator-based platforms. My niche is local news. So those content creators, just like on YouTube or Rumble or TikTok or Instagram, everybody, we're the platform. They don't work for me. I work for them. We create technology to enhance revenue for them. We sell all the ads. Their job is to put out compelling content, build an audience like YouTube, and then build an audience that consumes their content. And the more their content gets consumed, the more money they make. It's just that simple. So I realized what we were doing was important. And we live in a world today, and I'm going to assume, because I've never been to Australia before, but I'm going to assume that the big media companies are either controlled by the government or they're big institutions that own them. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. It's very concentrated in the mainstream media,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all struggling. Well, in one sense they're struggling. The eyeballs are very limited. Less than 30% of Australians are consuming mainstream media regularly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question is, where are they getting it? This whole dissipation, where are they getting it? And there are hundreds of solutions now, as you say, on the phone. And the younger people are not getting it from mainstream media. Same in
Yeah.
America. So the question that arises for me is has mainstream media ever been 100% accurate? The answer is no. When you look back at the establishment of newspapers, because print was established, by in Gutenberg. What was his name? The guy who invented the printing press. You know, how did people get information?
Yeah.
They were writing. The people would write stuff, but they had no photocopiers back in the fifth. The press was it Gutenberg? No, I think he was in Gutenberg. Anyway, the 15th century. But up until then, where did people get their news? And then I've been thinking about this. I often quoted Sam. People worry. So in my show, when I'm doing a monologue, and most of my shows are monologue, only special people get interviewed, like you. The issue I touch on is current issues. So it's last night I was watching Donald Trump launch 11 days of celebrations for America's 250 celebration. All right, that's a current affair. And in Australia, TDS is alive and well in this place. Trump derangement syndrome. But I say to people who are worried about what's happening on the planet, I say, think back 500 years ago to 1526. Right? Here you are in downtown England, somewhere in a village. You're not in London. You go, what's happening on the planet? You would have no clue. All you would
No.
know is your village and maybe two neighbouring villages, and that's it. And then someone would come along on a horse and say there's been a big fire in London. Well, it was the 17th century, actually, but you wouldn't know. You would be consumed with your local problems. And it's an interesting question. If I'm not aware of what's happening around the planet, I'm going to worry less, aren't I, if I don't know?
Oh, much better off if you don't know. Much
Yeah.
better off.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so this strategic decision that we make, and so the content-based platforms that you're talking about, the ability to go, for those in America, check out yournews.com. You put in your postcode and you say, hey, what's happening in my state, in my suburb? And you can find out. And the question is, this media, this MSM lying process, that your observation, your commitment to the media, this psychological imprinting of people. So the stuff that people are taking in, I don't understand why people can't see that the Democrats who are driving socialism, Marxism, communism is not the Democrats of old that you were referring to. And it's that mainstream media that is driving people's literally being fed bullshit.
Mm-hmm. So
And that's
what's the
that's what you've discovered. Sorry, that's why you've told me that's why you've started yournews.com.
this is going to become the next mainstream media. It's not even there's not even a 0.1% chance that I'm wrong. It'll be a citizen powered press, most likely global. For your audience, we're US based now. I do have outside contributors in other countries. The reason you have to access it with a VPN is because last week we started getting a lot of attacks. Nobody ever got in, but we were being attacked from multiple places in multiple countries. So my developer just put the walls down to shut the whole world off except the United States. So you could get in with a VPN that puts you in a US location, and then you could see what we're talking about. But that it wasn't up until a week ago, it was not shut down like that. We had to do it because I guess this is a threat to their democracy. It's the only thing I could figure out. And the weird part is 99% of the content we carry is local news. It's the church bake sale, the city council meeting, the high school football game. We have all kinds of local news coming in from all over the country. Hell, I have 6,000 news reporters for God's sake. So going back to your question, or what we were talking about, the neighbors that live next door to me are in their 80s. They listen to CNN and ABC and NBC, and they have Trump derangement syndrome. But these are not real liberals. They're not. They're not the nut job. Like everything I ask them, they're in line with me. Like, do you think we should have open borders to let out? No. Do you think we should allow the Somalians to steal all our tax dollars? Are you happy with the fact that the federal government has been complicit in allowing all these, what do they call them, NGOs to be able to steal all our money and do all this money laundering? Are you okay? No. So they're not okay with all that, but they've been brainwashed into believing Donald Trump is a demon. He's no good. But if it was anybody else, it would be okay. So it's really strange. But when you ask them the questions, if you're asking a real liberal, they would say, yes, we were glad that you're ripping you off, because they're really jealous of everybody else. I don't even know what to say, but they're some of the most unhappy people that I know. And the only thing they want is to make sure you don't have. Whereas when you have conservatives, you're an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. We want to build a business and then enjoy the fruits of our labor. Well, they're not interested in that. They're interested in taking everything.
What's your sense of entrepreneurs? Because one of the problems you touched on was the thousands of freelance journalists.
Mm-hmm.
There is a significant youth unemployment problem, and now we've got AI. So give me your vision of entrepreneurship, because jobs may well disappear. I'm a fan of Buckminster Fuller, as my regular viewers know. Behind me is the Dymaxion map of the world. Buckminster Fuller was an American who died in 1983 at the age of 87. This is the world's most accurate flat map of the world. It's accurate to 1%. And he envisioned a future where basically there was the UBI concept. He said, we are so clever, we can literally create a world where very few people have to work. Then you will need a distribution mechanism, because we have consumers, but basically we can use technology to do all the shitty jobs that no one wants to do. But we're going through this massive transition, and you're an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur, and what do you see is going to happen into the future around entrepreneurship and having to create your own future?
That's a good question. I know the media industry is shielded from it simply because you need boots on the ground covering local stuff. So, AI is only a tool when it comes to the media industry. But it's certainly, I use AI myself for certain things. It could be, a legal draft, right? Something for, like any kind of legal piece, it spits something out for me. So I think it's going to change a lot of different things, and people are going to have to figure out ways to leverage the media to be able, and I'm talking about all these creator-based platforms. That's why you see all these people on creator-based platforms. That's why there's 100 million people on TikTok. They're all trying to make a living, build their own brand. So I think it's going to certainly change our society. It'd be interesting to see how it all plays out. I know that when it comes to news reporting, I'm probably going to pick up people that I never would have got, because they're trying to find out new ways to earn a living. And they are, it's just the way it's going to be. So I think that it's still too early to tell. But I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to lose their jobs and have to look to do something else, because AI is definitely going to take a lot of people's jobs. Just in the stuff that I use it for, I'm like, wow, I would have had to call a lawyer. I'll give you a perfect example. I used it when I was putting together my equity crowd fund, and you had to do business plans and charts and all this stuff. I had it done. You pay 20 grand to get that stuff done. I had it done in a day, and it did it better than they could do it.
So, talking about equity crowdfund, are you doing a crowdfunding?
Yeah, I'm doing equity crowdfund for what I'm doing. So my background is capital raising, and normally companies like mine that have this kind of scale would go through institutional money like Silicon Valley, let's say, because all the tech giants came out of Silicon Valley. And what they do is they bring big money to these things, bring in real management teams, and they scale them across the globe. So they never have a need for capital because they provide the capital to make sure that they can dress these things up and ultimately take them public and sell them to the public. In our case, at the stage we're in, I said, if the reason we're in the mess we're in today is because of the legacy media, because it's controlled by six institutions, Charles. I mean, that's really the problem. And so I don't know in your country if anybody's ever seen those Sinclair broadcasting of the 50 TV saying the same thing at the same time, a threat to our democracy. I don't know if anybody's seen that.
Yes,
But
absolutely. I was seeing that analysis. Absolutely, threat to our democracy.
and it's
Standard.
scary because that was it's centralized news. It came from one individual, send it to all the markets, and they're just reading off of a teleprompter. There's nobody there reporting anything real. It's all coming from one location. So what, if we were to go the route of institutional money, what would end up happening at our stage is the institutional money would actually take over and own the controlling interest. They would scale this thing across the globe, probably do it the way I would do it. It's just at a much faster pace. And then they would ultimately change the culture. And now they control the next mainstream media. So the equity crowd funds work differently. Now, I do have relationships with institutional money because I know these people. And I do plan on using it. But equity crowd funds are unique because it allows everybody to participate. So for those of you who don't know, if you're doing something called a private placement, that means you're raising capital. Like Facebook did a private placement, Amazon did a private placement, Google did a private placement. They're all before they went public. So they take in early money. The really wealthy people, the 1%, buy the shares at a very low valuation, a very low price. They scale these things up. They then bring them to Wall Street and they take them public. And then those are the people selling you their stock. And they made an absolute fortune off of this. Well, equity crowd funds completely decentralize the investing community, the investment world, where anybody can participate. So you don't have to be an accredited investor. You're limited to what you can put in, meaning if your income is a specific number, let's say it's 20,000 a year, you may only be able to put in $2,000. But if you make $1 million a year, you can put in a lot more. So it's all based on your income. And for the smaller stuff, you don't have to prove it. You get into bigger money. I think they're going to want to see documentation before they take the money in. So it allows everybody to participate. And the reason that I did this was because if we're truly going to be a people-powered press, Charles, then shouldn't the public own the product and not the institutions? I mean,
Sam, that's a great example right now. We've just seen Elon Musk described as the first trillionaire.
crazy.
Of course, that was the SpaceX launch, and he's valued on paper at $1 trillion.
Amazing.
Of course, what's going to happen is that there were private placements, and when the public buys those shares, Elon and those who took the private placement will dump their shares, sell their shares, of course, get all their money back, and then the public is got stock in a company allegedly worth $1 trillion.
Mm-hmm. Well, and look, it's up to the company to make it, but the marketplace decides, right? But the early investors invested as they took all the risk, but they get all the rewards because when they were putting money into that thing, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, did you know it was going to go public? You thought, oh, there's a shot. I mean, you even heard Elon say, I wasn't sure if this one was going to make it, but it got there. And all of a sudden now it's he's worth $1 trillion from it. So all we're doing is we're saying, look, rather than go to the institutional money, what I do is inevitable, Charles. It's going to happen whether I do it or not. The void I fill is the collapse of legacy media. On LinkedIn Navigator, if you put in freelance journalists across the globe, there's 2 million people out of work. Give me a break, okay? That's the void that I fill. And so it's going to happen whether I do it or not, because as well as I do as an entrepreneur, there's always somebody that fills a void as an entrepreneur, right?
Yes.
So it's going to happen anyway. We just happen to be the only players in our space.
And the universe, the classic saying is the universe abhors a vacuum. Abhors a vacuum. ABHORS. Universe hates a vacuum. So what crowdfunding platform are you using? Because there's a number. So what's your investigation show? Because people watching this show, they might want to do crowdfunding, and if you strike a chord on crowdfunding, you can raise millions. There's a great story of a beehive, newly developed beehive model, and they were looking to raise $500,000, and in a few weeks they raised $12 million.
So there's, I know this game because I've been doing it for a while. So I had an offering on one platform. I moved to another platform and I raised a little over $500,000 was all I wanted on that platform. This one here, I'm doing an even smaller one. I'm selling crumbs, but it's at a low valuation. So this one, I'm doing a 365,000 one. But the moment this is completed, I'm going to start $1 million, 1.2 million. So, and I'm going to tell you what they are. You have a 1.2, like you have a $1.2 million offering. You have a 5 million, and then you have a Reg A, which is a 75, which is the highest you can go. So if you want to raise 30 million, you have to use the Reg A. You just stop at 30 million.
So Reg A is the platform.
It's the offering.
Oh, Reg A. Sorry, regulation.
The platform I used is Highlander AI. Highlander AI. I'll send you the link. That's what I'm using.
Everybody, Highlander. Well, the question from your experience, and I respect your experience enormously. So if you're using Highlander AI, that becomes a viable platform for people to look at. What are the other options that you've looked at? Kickstarter is one. GoFundMe.
So the first platform I was on was something called Issuance Express. It did the job. I didn't really like the customer service of it, which just, I'm not going to knock them in any way, shape, or form because the platform worked brilliantly. And, it's up to me to bring in the capital, but they just go through there. It's all, FINRA, SEC governed. So it's all done via a brokerage firm in that environment. But I had somebody from Highlander.ai reach out to me, and they wanted my business. This was as I was closing the other one. And I had a conversation. They're two brothers. And I mean, these guys give me their cell phone numbers. I'm on the phone with them. I need something. They jump through hoops to get it done. The other people, I'd send them an email, and 3 weeks later, they wouldn't even give me a response. And I'd send it to 3 or 4 people, and you might have a shareholder that needs something. So it was just a customer service thing. The product itself worked fine. I just wasn't getting any of the customer service I needed. So I moved platforms. I mean, look, you could go to Kickstarter. You could go to any one of these. This one I just happened to do because I said, let me do a small one and I'll test it. So this one's just a 365 grand one, but these guys are great. So for me, they're all the same. Yeah, they're all the same.
That's a wonderful recommendation because at the end of the day, you have to get, there's so many crowdfunding exercises on, aren't there? Like there's a huge range of options to choose from. And, the challenge for people, I have people coming to me, they've got $2 million, $5 million in the bank. Where do I put it? People with money, it's a real problem in a world where things are changing rapidly. You don't know what's going to happen. So thank you for that note. Highlander.ai, how do people search? They go to yournews.com, or what do they look up?
Well, if you can get on, you go to yournews.com and you go to the bottom of the page and click invest, but you could also go to Highlander.ai, and I'll do it just to tell you. So once you're there, you go to invest and it'll say startups, and there's a bunch of them on this page. You have to find the Your News one, and it says the future of news belongs to the people. And you just click on that to learn more, which takes you to our equity crowdfund, which, by the way, I'll give you the link so you could share it for people so they could just click right into it. But Excellent. They could read about what we're doing. I did a video which explains the whole thing. I think it's about 7 minutes, but it's, start to finish how this is going to work, because now that we've been doing it for the last couple of years and we now have 6,000 news reporters, this is not an investment where I need your money to figure it out. This is already in the process of scaling. And if I want to double my traffic, which my traffic was just under 1.7 million visitors last month, all I do is double my creator base. No different than Rumble. Rumble has 250,000 people on the site. What do you think is going to happen if they go to 500,000? it's going to double their traffic, right?
And your point is that the creators, that's why I wanted to interview you, because I want all of us to understand the media game, number one. But number two, anyone watching this can become a creator, and then the creators notify their own networks of this platform.
So they do, but they promote their own platform on social media, right? They already have a following. Like
Yes.
I have somebody, I showed you, Sarah, that does auto racing news, and she has a following on X, on Facebook, on other social media sites. And every time she posts a story, she shares it on all her socials. She brings me thousands of people a week reading her content, but she's one of 6,000. Watch what happens when I'm at 60,000. And then at 600,000, you see what I mean? That's how this works. She's using my platform for distribution and monetization.
And importantly, she's reporting on a topic not related to geography, correct?
Well, correct. Yeah. So it's national news or international.
Yeah. So national, and then on your platform, so everybody get a VPN so that you can access this. It'll eventually be, you won't need a VPN, but VPNs are a good idea for a whole bunch of reasons, I'm told. So your vision on this, so that every one of you can become creators, and then advertisers. Tell me the thinking of advertisers. So with your racing car reporter, so advertisers in the racing car industry will advertise on that.
Sure,
channel.
but our niche is local, so we could drill down to one zip code. So think of any city you're in, whether it's in Sydney or whether you're in Miami, it doesn't matter. They all have newspapers. The Miami Herald has a newspaper. Chicago Tribune, where you are, there's a newspaper. Just think of their sports page. However many ads they can put on that page, we could do in one zip code. So we can target the local, which means the CPM rates are 10 times the money. When you're selling national ads, the rates are already predetermined. I mean, it's the marketplace that decides. They're $10 CPMs. So you could have national ads that are running, but then Joe's Pizza, and I'm making it up, or some auto parts store, little guy in Miami decides he only does business in 3 zip codes and he wants to target an ad where a national ad is. His bid is going to be higher, which means his ad, it goes on a best bid basis, which means he bumps the national advertiser. Make sense?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And the local, I was just thinking as you're saying that, there's a local retailer who's got a new, who wants to advertise his store and in that local zip code, because that's where, and the people find out about it. And the other exciting news, I think, Sam, and I'm interested in your views on this, of physical pamphlets in letterboxes. You see, I reject the view that people don't want physical. Youngsters don't want physical, but physical still works. Stuff in letterboxes still works. And in a local area, then the content creator can literally put a newsletter into, here's a suggestion for you, get your local content creators in the zip codes to hand out flyers into letterboxes so that yournews.com is on their fridge with a fridge magnet. You watch what happens.
It could be done. So I don't know how it is by you, but the average age of people watching cable news in the United States is about 73 years old.
That's 73. Wow. Yeah.
So
let's work, because we only got a few minutes left. I want to talk about risk. I want to talk about your mindset in your life, because to be an entrepreneur, you have to take risks, and living a life without risk, or desiring to live a life without risk, is a very risky proposition. Tell me, tell us what you think about risk and your attitude to risk in your own life.
Everything I do is a risk. I mean, with the exception of when I was in my teens, like working at McDonald's when I was 15 or 16 years old. I mean, I've never had a job. When I worked at Lehman Brothers, they never gave me a paycheck. You just eat what you kill. You have to build your own business. You just use the brokerage firm, but nobody ever wrote me a check. So I wouldn't even understand what it's like to have a job. And, when you've been like me for this long, I don't take orders well, right? I'm the guy who gives them. So I wouldn't understand that. I'm trying to accomplish something. And, as an entrepreneur, you have a vision, and the only person that's going to execute your vision is you. This is why, this is why what you're doing, you're the only person that can make it happen. Whereas somebody else is doing something else and they're the only person that can happen, that can make it happen. My case, it's the same thing. And as we build this, it'll start to attract more money. And we're talking about, like with your news, as you start scaling and getting bigger and you becoming a national recognized brand, it'll start attracting more, not only ad revenue, but investment capital, which then you'll bring in more people to scale it and build it. So yeah, so risk is, to me, it's the only thing I know. I live, eat, and breathe it. I'm there's, what I'm talking about. There's times where you're stressed to the nines, and then other times where things are a little bit easier. But basically, my whole life is I'm under stress, and I couldn't imagine not being that way.
That's right. So it's almost the risk becomes your motivator, doesn't it? If you don't kill, you don't eat.
It's 100%. So if everything is going really good for me and everything is easy, you tend to take your foot off the gas. When you're stressed out and you need to get something done, it's amazing just how hard you push, and all of a sudden things just come out of it.
So looking back at your upbringing, I'm a risk taker. I when I changed career from the law in 1993, 33 years ago this month in June of 1993, I was the head of commercial law at the 10th biggest law firm in Australia. And I went cold turkey to become a professional speaker. And what I'm interested in is your mindset. What do you say to yourself about these, living, as they say in the classics, Sam, you're living off your wits. There's a great gag that says, I went to university to become a wit, but I only got halfway through.
What is the question?
Well, the question is, what goes on in your mind about risk? What are you saying to yourself? Shit, what happens if I fail? Shit, I better work my bum off. What's your self-talk?
So that never even crosses my mind. The only thing, like failure is not an option. So the only thing I ever think of is how many content creators am I going to pick up this week? Who am I going to be talking to? I mean, it's never failure because I'm already winning. It's now, how do we win at scale even bigger, right? And so there's no losing here. I mean, I showed you before what a content creator is worth. Do you remember? Okay, like how Wall Street values them. For those of you who want to understand, platforms. If you have a platform, all platforms have the same features. You have like a way you could share content, a way for people to upload, a way for people to buy ads. You have ways for people to follow a specific author. So all those four things every single platform has. We have it too. But a platform with nobody using it is worthless, okay? Because nobody's on it. So the hardest thing I ever did was get the first guy and then the second guy. And now I'm at 6,050 or something guys, right? So the audience went from 0 to almost, 1,000,007 people in a 30-day time frame. So it's grown. So for me, this is already winning. I mean, for me now, it's how do I build a bigger, faster? And going back to the creators, the creators have a value, and the types of platforms like Rumble or YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or your news, these are not normal creator like a Facebook where my mom could have her own page. These are influencers is what they are. The value to those creators, Wall Street set the number. You take the market cap of the company and you divide the creator base into it. And that's what Wall Street values. It is literally just that simple. So Rumble's the easiest because they have a $2.5 billion market cap and they have 250,000 creators. So they're worth about 10 grand a creator. That's how it works. So now that I know that, by the time I have 100,000 creators, which you might say, well, how can you get that many? Well, there's 20,000 cities. That's 5 people a city. I figure we're going to need about 50 per city. So you're talking 100,000 news reporters, but you could have people covering the church bake sale, the city council meeting, the local high school sports, which you'll need a lot of them. You could have people doing faith-based stuff, video stuff, people doing hard news, food and wine, home and garden, travel. I mean, it's endless. And so, these creators will give you literally a value of $1 billion for just 100,000.
So
We have
100,000 creators at 10,000 each is $1 billion.
it's $1 billion. And
So
so,
last question, because we're running out of time. So
okay,
you say you've never had a job.
no.
I put to you that very few people, when they've finished school, go, I'm not going to get a job, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Not many people do that. And my question to you is, looking back, why didn't you think that as you're at school, I've got to study because I've got to get a job? And by the way, there's a great quote on job. JOB stands for just over broke.
Yeah, right. To me, I just never liked to work for anybody else. And to me, I always said I could do it. I'll do it myself. Thanks. And that's all I did. So when you,
There you are. But you then said, I can do it myself. See, that's this question of self-confidence. Where did that self-confidence come from?
I don't know. I just did it.
Your dad had a job, correct?
Well, he was an iron worker, and then ultimately he ended up buying a small restaurant and built it into something a lot bigger, so he was an entrepreneur. But long before then, I mean, everything I ever did was, I did it on my own. I never really looked for a job other than when I was in high school. I did everything. By the way, the Lehman Brothers thing, the brokerage firm, they never wrote you a check. They gave you a desk and a phone, and they said, go ahead and do it. And, it took some figuring out, but I did it. And I actually did really well there. And then I went off to start raising capital for private deals. And then I said, we could do our own. And I had a couple people, we had an idea, and we set out to do it. Probably the biggest mistake I ever made, because if I wouldn't have did that, what I should have done was shorted the newspaper stocks, Charles, because here we are building a platform to replace the newspapers. And if I would have just put this money in that, I'd be worth about $300 million today. But that being said, what we do will become the next mainstream media. It'll be a hyperlocal news platform that's global with a social component where the public can interact and share in the narrative, along with a monetization model where content creators can submit their work freely without censorship and get paid for it, and a self-service ad platform where somebody can buy an ad targeted to one zip code. This is not fantasy. I already do it. Now, how do you do it at scale?
It's a great story. I love your story of risk taking that you didn't consider was a risk. Failure is not an option. I love that line, and your ability not to stress. I could keep unpacking your behaviors, Sam. I love what you've created for the planet, and it gives me hope that the influence of lying mainstream media is going to steadily, it's literally collapsing before our eyes.
Yeah.
So congratulations. Yournews.com, and Sam, you're a golfer like I am. So one day we will have playing rounds of golf in Florida and Melbourne, where some of the world's best golf courses are, as you know.
There is. God, I would love to do that. Let me just get this thing public, and I'm going to fly out there, and we're going to play a round of golf. I would love to visit Australia. Absolutely, 100%.
Excellent. And everybody, go have a look at yournews.com. From around the world, you can apply to become a creator. What does it cost to become a creator? Nothing, does it? You just become a creator.
You click the submit your news button at the bottom. I'm sorry, you go to the bottom and click become a citizen journalist. For people out of the United States, I'm looking for more world news. I have people that cover, like was it Ireland? They were having all the riots like a year ago. Okay, I had a guy there covering all that stuff. It was phenomenal. Okay, so that that kind of stuff, things that are happening that would be more world that the U.S. would want to know about. That's the kind of stuff we want. Eventually, once we get this to the point of being public and we raise the capital for that, this is where we start expanding this globally and we start opening up other countries, because it's really just rinse and repeat. That's all it is.
Yep, beautiful. All right, Sam, thank you for being with us. Stay passionate, and I look forward to sharing the journey with you and being one of your citizen journalists.
Love it, Charles. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.